All right, guys. Good evening. I'm glad you're here, whether online through the YouTube channel or in person. Um, so tonight we will continue our series as we have been doing the last several weeks. Next week will be Fellowship Supper, Wednesday night 6:30. So y'all be here for that next week. I believe the theme is food with shapes. That's a Gar thing. Circle foods, triangle foods. Kate is probably more excited than she should be about that. She's like, "Can we just cut macaroni and cheese into circles?" I'm like, "I don't think that's really what he was referring to, but yeah, we can do circle mac and cheese." So you guys be there for that if you can. That's just a good time to hang out, fellowship, talk, do life. Church provides drinks and plates and all of the silverware, and then everyone brings enough to share. So you guys, if you're here and able to do that, that'll be next year actually, which isn't that far away, but just I like saying that. And I'll probably say on Sunday, I haven't seen you guys since last year, and you can't say those things if you're not a dad. But if you're a dad, you can just say those things, and people just kind of So I promised I would never get like that, but then I had kids, and I was like, I got to be like that. So tonight's question is, in our series, The Bible Has Answers. The question is, and I just put this to kind of, the person who wrote the question put more things. This is just kind of a summation. Basically, what does the Bible say about tattoos? What does the Bible say about tattoos? And then they actually asked some more things on the front and back of the card. How should Christians view tattoos? Should a Christian get a tattoo? Are they okay to get? Is it sinful to have them? Does it even matter? Will God be angry if Christians get tattoos? What if the tattoo is not something that is about God? So I guess if you got like a Pokemon on your calf or a butterfly on your neck or whatever the case may be, right? Whatever that looks like. So should, I guess almost like should the tattoo be, like if you're a Christian, should it be always Jesus-like focused related, something with Scripture or something like that? Should it be a cross? So we'll just kind of, what we're going to do is this, y'all, and this is what we're doing on every single question. So I don't dictate necessarily the topic that we're going to speak about because I let the questions do that. But where the Bible leads us is where we go, if that makes sense, right? And if the Bible's loud about something, then we're going to be loud about it. And if the Bible just doesn't address it or kind of brushes over it or just doesn't appeal to it, then that issue may be more of what we would call a wisdom issue, right? Not necessarily whether it's right or wrong, but whether it is wise or unwise. There are decisions that you will make in your life that really have not a whole lot to do about your righteousness or holiness. It's just going to be a decision that you make based on the wisdom and a word that we like to use, conviction. You may say, I'm just really convicted about this and I don't want any part of it. That's awesome. That's fine. Be careful that conviction doesn't lead to like pointing out everyone else's stuff because that may have nothing to do with the gospel or anything like that. So, coming to church tonight, Kate was in the back seat, and we covered, I wish I'd have been recording her. We covered every topic under the sun. Every time she saw something, she brought another topic up. She asked about going camping because she saw a camper go by. She asked about Christmas lights because we saw Christmas lights. She was just talking about everything. And then she goes, Dad, what are you even talking about tonight? I said, well, we're going to talk about tattoos. And she just said, oh. I said, what do you have against tattoos? She goes, Dad, you're not even going to talk about the gospel, are you? I said, yes, we're going to talk about the gospel, but somebody asked about tattoos. She goes, well, it's not about Jesus. And I said, well, the Bible has stuff to say about that. So I said, you know what, you can go back to your classroom with Courtney, and y'all can talk about that stuff, and we'll talk about tattoos up here. So then she went on to the next subject. So Kate disapproves heavily of the topic tonight, so I know that she did not ask the question. So let me ask you this right quick before we start. Tattoos. When I say that word, what immediately kind of comes to your mind? The Navy, okay? Military, right? Immediately. Bikers, right? Okay. Picture, right? Picture. Jail. Jail. Okay, listen. And here's the thing, y'all. There's a wide array of like topics that come into people's head, and a lot of it has to do with your background, where you came from. And so if you hear something, you may just immediately go, like tattoo prison fights. Somebody's getting shanked, like homemade tattoo needle in the backyard of some prison cell. Like I think it depends kind of where you come from, depends on kind of where like your mind takes you. when I was growing up, y'all, tattoos were, like I said, if you got a tattoo, it was like within our family, it was okay if you were in the military, or like if you were, I don't know, military. I think was a big one. I wrote the other one down. Military and like you said, if you were in a biker or if there was some like legit thing you were a part of, it was almost like acceptable in that. But like you just don't go get some body art just to go get it. That makes no sense. Why would you draw on yourself? That was kind of our family thing that everybody talked about. But the question is, what does the Bible have to say about it? Not what does my grandmother have to say or my dad or anybody else, but what does the Bible say about it, if anything? So I believe there are three typical stances on tattoos. Typically, when you bring up tattoos, you have people that are just like, yeah, cool, whatever, man, I don't care. Like just pretty neutral about it. Yeah, get it if you want it, don't get it, who cares, you know. Nobody's judging you. And then you have people that are like obsessed with them, like you should get a tattoo. I think you'd love it. I have a bunch, and like they're addicting. And they're almost like evangelistic about getting a tattoo. And they want to show you their tattoos. And they're constantly like, hey, look at this I got. Look at this new art that I got, right? They're excited about that too. Sometimes very, look. And they want everybody to kind of see and notice it. And then you have people who I've ran into quite a few of these folks within the church that are like, tattoos are sinful and wicked. And if you get it, it's feeling a little hot in here, you know? Or they're super judgmental about it, or just, I cannot believe they got a tattoo, right? So we will talk about this and just kind of look at what the scriptures have to say, because the idea of tattoos historically has shifted. Tattoos have been around long before Jesus walked the earth. They've been around forever. Ancient Egyptians, Canaanites, even prior to that. These things have been around for a massively long time. And the meaning that they had then is different than the meaning that it has now in our culture. So I just looked up some history stuff, y'all. I got on this tangent, and you know, when someone brings this up, like I'm looking at topics, studying, obviously we're looking at the word first, but then I just started to Google stuff and like run down this rabbit trail. There are shows about the history of tattoos. There's shows on Netflix about tattoos and competitions that they have. And so here's just a little bit of just some history that I found that I thought was pretty interesting. Tattoos did not really become mainstream if you were not in the military or a biker gang until about the 70s. And then it kind of became real popular where like a lot of people would just get tattoos. Like just people just wanted to like use it as probably most of the time was an expression of like themselves. Maybe a memory of a loved one, something that really meant a lot to them. Maybe it was a religious symbol. Maybe it wasn't a religious symbol. Maybe they were in prison and like needed to be associated with a certain group, and so they got one to associate with a certain group. For some people, and this is actually crazy, y'all, people actually get tattoos in prison so that they're not killed. That's crazy, right? That if they're not associated with a certain group, to not be associated or branded means that you're a target. Now, that's absolutely kind of mind-blowing, and most people are like, well, just don't go to prison and you can, like, help that. Well, that's fine, but, like, if the event that you end up in prison, I guess getting a mark on your body may be helpful if the guy's next door to you is not going to shank you. So, like I said, all different circumstances. But typically, military, gangs, motorcycle groups, those people were the typical people that would get them. You would see that. I can remember as a little kid, if you saw somebody with a tattoo, it probably meant that they were either in prison, a part of some motorcycle group, in the military, or like there was some other very, very specialty thing. Most people just didn't have body art on them. It just wasn't a thing. Now, you walk outside in the summertime today, it's hard not to pass people everywhere that have tattoos of all short shapes, sizes. So this is what's crazy. Listen to this. It was illegal in New York City until 1997 to tattoo somebody in the city limits of New York. 1997. In 1961, it became a law. It is illegal to tattoo. It was seen as taboo. It was seen as like messing up the body that you had been given. It was a huge deal. And so it wasn't until 97. Now, people were doing it underground. Were they enforcing the law? Not really, but it was technically on the books illegal. You could be arrested and cited for giving somebody a tattoo or receiving a tattoo, which I thought that was interesting because, like, I mean, my dad's like, well, I've been there prior to 97, and everybody had tattoos. And all you'd say is, well, I was at another state when I got it, and nobody was. If New York City, they got much bigger problems than running around citing people for tattoos on their legs or their shoulders. But it wasn't legal till 1997. And that's obviously progressed and become far more normal now than you can walk through the schools of the high school, and a lot of people are tattooed. Most of the guys that I played football with or basketball, almost all of them had tattoos when I was in high school in 03, 04, 05. So it's very normal. I grew up just kind of normalized and saturated in that. So here's what we're going to do. Let's look at Leviticus 19:28. That is the one place in the entire Bible where the word tattoo is used in an English translation. Only one place in the Bible, Leviticus 19:28. So I'm going to read it in the ESV, and then I'm going to read it in another version because I want you to see kind of the difference. So obviously we'll talk about context in a second, but just Leviticus 19:28. You shall not make any cuts on your body for the dead, or tattoo yourselves. I am the Lord. Now, for the extreme legalist and like, you know what? It says it. It's just the end of the conversation. Do not tattoo yourselves, period. Don't cut yourselves for the dead or tattoo yourselves. Don't do it. It's the end of the discussion. Now, the English word that we have for tattoo, y'all, that word didn't even originate in English. We didn't even use that word in the English language until the 1700s. Like the word tattoo is a fairly new word, if that makes sense. The original Hebrew for this word tattoo is not the same word tattoo. It is to mark, make an incision, or to imprint, which could be extremely vague as far as what's being discussed and actually done to the body. Now, the KJV, which I do not teach from for numerous reasons, but the King James Version actually, I think, translates the word better than the ESV does. So let me read it to you in the KJV. So the ESV says, you shall not make any cuts on your body for the dead or tattoo yourselves. I am the Lord. The KJV says this, and some of you may have memorized this if you grew up on the KJV, but probably not. Ye shall not make any cuts in your flesh for the dead, nor print any marks upon you. I am the Lord. So the print any marks upon you is probably a better translation than the word tattoo, but that was just mainstream English, and so that was the word that got thrown in the translation for Leviticus 19:28. So I want us to understand context because context is going to be key for all that we do here. So we're looking at literary context, we're looking at historical context, we're looking at who's writing it. Who's the author of Leviticus? Moses. Moses is the author of Leviticus, and who is Moses writing to? What group of people is Moses writing to? Yes, he is writing to the Hebrews right after they have been taken out of captivity, led through the Red Sea. Pharaoh's army has been crushed, and now they are out, and they are completely dependent on God. And this nation of Israel is becoming set apart from all other nations. They are gaining, if you will, complete independence and complete dependence upon the Lord. And He gives, and God gives a massive amount, 600 plus laws that need to be obeyed by the Hebrews, by the Israelites, because God's goal is for them to be a set apart people, for I am the Lord and you are my people. That's why He's writing this. This is the context. So, this was taught by Moses because the Lord has given this to him. And the idea of Leviticus, the idea of Leviticus 19:28, the context of that is that pagan nations were doing this in honor of pagan gods and pagan rituals. So what had probably happened were the Israelites, some of them have probably adopted some of these pagan trends and customs, and they were either doing it or participating in it, and the Lord was like, we will have none of that. You are my people, I am your God, these are the rules, you are under me, therefore you will not be like the Canaanites or the Egyptians or the Moabites or any other ites, you will be the people of God. So that is why He is writing these things. A lot of times, at least from what we understand from historical study, and guys much smarter than me that have done a lot of the legwork, that people would mark their bodies and cut themselves in response to someone dying. Maybe to offer a sacrifice or cause harm to their body so that these pagan false gods, little g, would like honor their fallen. So a lot of it was idolatry. A lot of it was geared toward pagan worship, pagan cultish, whatever they would be into, that's what that was for. The idea of body art, right? The idea that you would get something that reminded you of like your fate, that's not like, they're not doing it for that reason. They legitimately believe that they have to make some sacrificial mark or cut. There's even historians that would say that people would just slice like cuts into their face. They would make imprints of like the symbol of the god on their arm, or they would paint it on them. Different tribes would paint stuff all over their body. They thought it was protection, right? That they would be protected from evil spirits. And so this is what Moses is addressing and what God's law was trying to say. Does that make sense? So I just want us to understand the context of it, because I have heard pastors quote that and go, it settles the issue. It just settles the issue. It says don't tattoo yourself. Don't tattoo yourself. Like, how hard is that? Just don't go to the little shop with a needle and pick out a design. So I think that's important for us to understand context, like I said, before we kind of get into the other aspects of this. So this is written to the Israelites because God has called them to be a set-apart people. They are to not look like the rest of the world. That's why you have 600 plus laws in the Old Testament, in the Levitical law. But I want to read you this too. Exodus 19, 4 through 6. So we're going back a little bit from Leviticus. Exodus 19, 4 through 6 says this. Moses writes this. You yourselves have seen what I did to the Egyptians. This is the Lord speaking. What I did to the Egyptians and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. So God has redeemed the Israelites from captivity, from punishment, from slavery, from bondage. Now, therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all peoples, for all the earth is mine. So he is choosing specifically the Israelites as his people. And you shall be to me, verse 6, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you will speak to the people of Israel. So this is what God is giving to Moses to go tell the people. You are God's, therefore you are not your own. Therefore your body and all that you do is not your own. Now, I will say this. This is still applicable today. Does that make sense? You are God's, not your own. So what I want to be careful tonight is this. We don't take Christian liberty and go, you know what, I'm just independent. I'll do whatever I want to do. Your body, everything that you have has been given to you by the Lord. And there is Christian liberty. And there are things that you can make decisions about doing or not doing, or if I'd like to do this or not do this. But understand this, the bigger scope of this is that you are not your own, but you are the Lord's. And so this same principle of you are God's and we will keep His commands is true. There again, we are not under the Levitical law anymore. We are not under that. We're in a new covenant. Jesus has paid for sin. They couldn't even keep all of the law, which is exactly why Christ had to come to live it out perfectly and completely fulfill it so that He would be an acceptable, pleasing sacrifice to God the Father so that you could have righteousness imputed to you by Jesus' righteousness. So none of us are good. None of us are able to keep this, but God's command is still the same, that you are my people. And if you are a follower of Christ today, you have been grafted into the family of God. So therefore, you should care and take heart with the things that you do to your body, the things that you put in your body, the things that you expose your body to. You should be thinking about those things because you are the Lord's. Now, let's just say this. Let's look at this. Leviticus 19, 1 and 2. Here's another text. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to all the congregation of the people of Israel and say to them, you shall be holy. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. God's incredible journey in bringing us through sanctification and edification is to make us mirror Him more and more. The goal of every Christian is not perfection, but that we become more and more holy, submitting to God's Word, submitting to Him more and more. That's the goal. And so He wanted His people to be a people that were holy because He was holy. And they are to be a set-apart nation. Now, let's say this. So if you ever said, you know what, Leviticus 19:28, man, it solves the riddle. Should not get tattooed. Absolutely. If you say that, then you must therefore keep in line with the rest of the Levitical law, which means that you cannot eat shrimp, which means that when you garden or plant, things must be in a certain row and so far apart. It also means this, Leviticus 19:26, you shall not eat any flesh with blood in it. Anybody like a medium rare steak? Anybody like a juicy burger? Can't have that. Leviticus 19:27. You shall not round off the hair on your temples or mar the edges of your beard. I have no beard. All of you, not so good. Me and Abraham, I think we're fairly safe. So what I'm trying to say is this, is if you say, well, you should not do that, and you don't understand the context of it, then there's 100 laws that everyone every day in here is disobeying and not being obedient to. Does that make sense? Now, here's where we kind of come to, do you guys like this? Think before you ink? You like that? I came up with that. So think before you ink. So here's where I want to kind of just land. Jimmy, nobody can see us on the camera. Nobody can see the audience on the camera, can they? Can anybody see the audience on the camera? Okay, all right. How many people in here have a tattoo? You can just okay. We will take an account. We have the tattooed and the untattooed. So, no, I'm just kidding. So we have a few folks with tattoos, obviously. Is anybody here that doesn't have a tattoo kind of contemplating getting a tattoo? Okay. All right. You never know? Okay. Yeah. No, listen. So I just wanted to, it is interesting that when we talk about it, that there tends to be kind of two sides on it. And maybe some sides go, well, I don't care at all about tattoos. If you want to get one, just know it's pretty permanent. And just know it's there. So to answer the question specifically, in the question about is getting a tattoo a sin, the answer is it is not inherently evil or sinful to have a tattoo, okay? So if you were like, oh, what is he going to say? The Bible, listen, the New Testament just simply does not address the subject matter of tattoos. It just doesn't address it. Paul doesn't mention it. Jesus never talks about it. It's just not even brought up. And it doesn't mean that there weren't people that were cutting and marking their bodies somewhere in that culture for a pagan ritual. That doesn't mean that. Now, I believe, and Josh may can help me out, there's a few places, I just thought about it, within the Gospels where there are demon-possessed men that are cutting their body. There's several instances where Jesus would confront somebody, and maybe the text would say, I think Josh should probably look it up, where people were cutting their body, the demon-possessed man had cuts all over his body. Does that make sense? So that's even an even different type of thing that was even going on in Leviticus. So we just don't have, what'd you say? Mark 5:5. Put that in your notes if you want to look up that later. So there obviously was cutting, marking, there was all of those things that were probably happening, but the New Testament just simply does not address it as far as believers and Christians go. It's just not addressed other than Leviticus 19:28, and obviously from a context standpoint, that's not an issue for us today. So it is not sinful inherently to get a tattoo, and it is not evil to do that. But this is something that I think would fall under a Christian liberty and a conviction issue and a wisdom issue, if that makes sense. Now let me ask you this, and you don't have to say anything. Does anybody know anybody who has gotten a tattoo that regrets getting the tattoo? And everybody knows somebody that's like, man, let me tell you something. We was at Panama City, and Things got crazy. I'm not even sure. This girl's name is on my back. Y'all, I had several buddies in college that had females, their names tattooed on their body, and they were like, man, this was a terrible breakup. And like, my wife is still upset about this tattoo, and I need to get it removed. So what I'm saying is this. Most people, I think, if you took 6 months to just really think about whether you were going to get ink put on your body permanently, and I know you can remove it. I get their surgery for that now. But if you were going to put something permanent on your body, would you not want to like really, really think about it? If someone said, you're going to have a shirt on and you can never take that shirt off, right? Like, you just got to wear that shirt. You can clean it, but you got to put it right back on. Like, it's just going to be on you all the time. There's not a lot of variety within that. So, with that said, let's kind of jump into our next little section. And I'm not a pastor that's into rhyming stuff, but I did think this was pretty good. Think before you ink. So, if you choose to do this, let's talk about a few things. Can a tattoo, though they are not inherently sinful, can a tattoo be sinful? Okay, right? It can be. So let's say that you get a picture of a naked man or woman on your body. That's twofold a problem. It's obviously like sexually immoral and explicit, and not to mention, if you have it anywhere visible, it's creating a massive like eyesore for every child that sees it. Or if you have an explicit cuss word, which I have seen on people, it creates a ton of havoc. So when you say, well, can you get a tattoo? Well, yeah, you can get a tattoo, but obviously, like, we need to be careful. Now, listen, the world will do what the world will do, right? The world will do their thing. I'm just talking about believers in Christ. I mean, the world can do what they want to do. They don't ask my opinion. Nobody dropped a question in the box. So, if it's an obscene object, a naked woman, a naked man, if it's sexually vulgar, if it's something really, like, wild or crazy, what if it's racial? What if it's a racist tattoo? There are people that have swastikas on their shoulder. They have things, did I say that right? Yeah. They have like signs for Hitler. Like they'll have the little Nazi symbol on their body. There are people all over the place that have like ridiculously crazy things tattooed on their body that I would say that is a sinful thing to have on your body. If a Christian was like, I'm just going to get like a big tattoo of Buddha on my belly, like that's a problem. Like that's a problem. I don't know. That's a problem. I would say that's a problem, right? Would you not say that? I mean, that's a problem. If you're like, I'm going to get a picture of a truck running a guy over and like that would be problematic, right? Now, I know that's crazy, but if you just type in crazy tattoos, they're all over the internet. Or let's say this. Let's say you're getting something that's not necessarily sinful, but the location of the tattoo that you put on your body is going to create a stumbling block. How many tattoos have you seen of females where they have something right there at their chest? I see it all the time. Where does that draw eyes to, right? Could the tattoo create a stumbling block? Absolutely it could. So what I'm saying is the idea of just getting it, that's fine, but it could be a sinful thing if you're doing it with some like motivation that's not right. Now hopefully no Christian will be like, you know what? I was just thinking about something that would just create everybody in the church as a stumbling block. Like hopefully that's not like where your mind is. You are, or like I said, what if it's, you know, like a pagan tattoo? Or let me ask you this. What if somebody goes, well, it's going to be scripture, but let's say they're going to put Romans 3 on their arm, but here's the deal. You live under your parents' house, you're a minor, and mom or dad says, you're not getting a tattoo. You live under our roof. I don't care if you're going to get the entire Old Testament on your back, in Hebrew, single-spaced, whatever, 2-point font. You're not getting a tattoo. When you move out of your own, you can get it. And the 16-year-old goes, you know what? I'm going to do what I want to do. So he goes over to his buddy's house, and he tattoos his back. Is that sinful? Absolutely. Does that make sense? So if you're getting it out of rebellion or disobedience, that could be an absolute problem. So what I'm saying is this. It's not just as simple as is getting a tattoo sinful or not. Like there's a lot of variations and a lot of things to think about. Also, too, what if you're getting the tattoo because you want to bring attention to yourself? I would say this, and I'm not making any massive assumptions. I'm just saying because I've lived in the world and I know a lot of people that have them. Most people, especially if you go to a gym that have tattoos, they want you to know they have tattoos. right? There are a lot of guys that when they found performance-enhancing drugs and got swole biceps and massive chest want to get things that would like draw attention to the individual. So therefore, when everybody sees you, they're not seeing you and looking to Christ, but they're looking to you and they're looking to you. And they're continually looking to you. So I think that we need to be very careful as to like where the tattoo maybe would be placed if we decided, if any event, to go ahead and do that. So let me read this. Ephesians 5, 1 through 11. The New Testament, y'all, doesn't speak specifically to tattoos, but it does speak to the heart of the believer. Ephesians 5, verse 1 says this, "Therefore be imitators of God as beloved children, and walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us, a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. But sexual immorality and all impurity or covetousness must not be named among you, as is proper among saints." Or anything sexual, anything that's going to create idolatry or desire or covetousness, have nothing to do with those things. "Let there be no filthiness, nor foolish talk, nor crude joking, which are out of place, but instead let there be thanksgiving. For you may be sure of this, that everyone who is sexually immoral or impure or who is covetous, that is, an idolater, has no inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of these things the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience." Verse 7, "Therefore do not become partners with them." So don't associate with all of that stuff. "For at one time you were darkness, but now you are light in the Lord." Your goal, and we'll talk about this at the very end about bringing glory to God, your goal is to be a light to the dark world. And I understand, like, I'm just trying to be relevant. I've had pastors go, I'm just trying, I have tattoos to show that I have a past. Like, I'm just trying to relate to people. Quit saying that. Like, I can point to 100 godly men and women of the past that did just fine without tattoos. So if you're like, I just need tattoos because like I'll fit in and people will think like I'm relevant, like you're probably not preaching the gospel if that's your concern. "Walk as children of the light, for the fruit of light is found in all that is good and right and true, and try to discern what is pleasing to the Lord. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them." Don't participate in crazy sinful stuff. Expose that stuff and run away from it. That is our goal as believers. So yes, getting a tattoo could in essence be sinful. You just need to severely check your motives and what you're getting. Also too, let's think about this. Is your money your money? The answer is no if you didn't know the answer. Everything that you have been given is from the Lord. He has blessed you to be a blessing. He has not blessed you to just go, you know what, I'm just going to do whatever I'd like to do with my money. Now, I'm not saying spending money on a tattoo is wrong. I'm just saying, because let me tell you something. If you say, well, you're saying I wasted money on a tattoo, I promise you I wasted money on pickleball. I just got a new paddle. It was Christmas money, but I got a new paddle. I could have used that somewhere else, right? But I got a new paddle. And if you want to see it, I'll show it to you. I have it in the car. So from a financial perspective, 1 Timothy 5:8, "But if anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for family members of his household, he has denied the faith and he is worse than an unbeliever." Y'all, I know people that literally have either purchased drugs, and I know, kid you not, because I used to do ministry, ironically prison ministry in Opelika. There were men that would literally not feed their family because they were getting the next tattoo or chasing the next tie. It is wrong to go, and that's for anything you spend your money on. But I knew guys that would literally like go, I got to get a tattoo. I have to get this. I mean, $1,000 on a tattoo and forsake what was most important, which was keeping the heat on at their house. Or choosing cigarettes over like basic necessities or alcohol over whatever. So what I'm saying is this. We have to be good financial stewards. So I called a few of the tattoo places around. I was like, hey, I'm interested in a tattoo. I just want to get some prices from you, right? So I just was asking because I was curious. Y'all, tattoos can range from $100. Typically, that's what they say. Several guys are like, if you're going to get a tattoo, just plan on $100 minimum. Just $100, whatever, even if it's small, on your wrist, on your back, whatever. $100, and they said, and we've done tattoos expensive, depending on if it's a full back or something crazy, up to $5,000. And I'm just sitting there thinking, a needle, I just can't do it. I just can't do that many needle pumps. So full sleeves, $1,000. Full back tattoos, $3,000 to $4,000. Crazy. If it's in, especially if it's in color, like if it's in black and white or whatever, maybe not so much. If it's a full color thing, it could be super expensive. So the point is this, is that God has entrusted us with money, and so therefore we want to be good stewards of what God has given us. And if you're unable to take care of your family, but you're also able to get all these tattoos or spend money on this stuff, it's kind of like, are you providing? Are you being a good steward? Are you being a good mom? Are you being a good dad? I'm not saying you're terrible. I'm just saying, like, I think your priorities are a little bit misshapen. Does that make sense? And you guys probably know people that just blow money on things, and their family takes the brunt of that. You probably work with people, or you may know people in your family that do that. Also, this too. Let's talk about this: the permanence of a tattoo, right? Now, I know you can remove them, and I called a few places and asked about removal. $500 up to $4,000, depending on how crazy the tattoo is, to get it removed. Like, that's just what they charge, because not many people do it. There's very specific places that do it. The technology is way better now than it used to be. But it's still extremely expensive. So you spend $2,000 or $3,000 on the tattoo, spend $2,000 or $3,000 to get it removed. What could you have done with that money to bless your family or to bless somebody else? So I'm just saying, what I want to do is this. If you're thinking about getting a tattoo, which I think if you got a tattoo, you already got one. Most people that didn't get a tattoo probably are not be like, man, I'm running straight out to the ink parlor tomorrow just to get one. But, like, it's permanent. So let me tell you this story right quick. I met a guy, this has been years ago. He was doing ministry in the States, and when he was in college, y'all, he went to Africa, and he was working with a tribe in Kenya. At the time, no tattoos, perfect fit for them. So he signs up with the IMB, International Mission Board, under the Southern Baptist Convention umbrella, signs up with them. It's like, man, I'm going to go back to this village. Well, it's been about 4 or 5 years. He's married to his wife. Y'all, he has gotten 2 sleeve tattoos. He's going to like training and stuff up in Minnesota. Well, every time he's up there, he's wearing long sleeves. And it just never comes up. And the stuff he's got is Christian. It's like verses and the cross and like this mural of like Jesus like walking on water. Like, it's really, really like cool stuff. And it's not like, you've seen tattoos that are like, man, who did that? Bubba? Did Bubba John do that? Did somebody that can't see do that tattoo? It looks like stuff is misspelled. Like, this guy, he's top dollar, like super nice. Like, it looked like it was popping off his arm. Like, really like devoted stuff. He even had like the country. He even had like Kenya like on the back and like the Lord like stepping into the country. Like, really neat stuff. Like, not at all goofy. So he gets over there, y'all, and no one had even mentioned this. He gets to the village day one. He goes out to work with the kids because they were doing like a VBS. He pulls up his sleeves, and as soon as the kids come up, they take off. He's blown away by it, he said. He said, I was like, what in the world? I was just, like, I've been here several times. And so apparently 5 or 6 of the surrounding villages, y'all, any tattoos were considered pagan. Any. So he had this massive desire to be in this place doing ministry, and because of that, he had to be relocated to Europe because he couldn't do ministry there. They were like, even if he got him removed, the kids have already seen it. All the people in the village, like, it had done spread like wildfire. This guy had tattoos, and he shouldn't have been able to. They'd never seen anybody with tattoos on the arms, so they just didn't know. If it had been on his back or something, or like behind his leg, maybe they wouldn't have seen it. He could have just kept it covered up. But as soon as they saw it, he lost all credibility. So what I'm saying is this: understand that getting that may have ramifications for something down the road. Just consider those things. I think that's important because of the permanence of it. And even if he got it removed, it wouldn't have mattered because they'd already seen it and they knew it. So 1 Corinthians 8, 9 through 13 says this, but take care, and this is going to kind of flow into 1 Corinthians 8, 9 through 13 is going to kind of flow into which doesn't have a massive amount to do with the permanence of it, but this is going to kind of flow into the kind of judging somebody else. Paul's talking about food specifically here, about if you eat something that's causing a brother to stumble, like, just don't eat it, right? Like, just kind of abstain from it, like almost like succumb to maybe the weaker brother and just don't do that, if that makes sense. If right now somebody said, hey, listen, I want you to go to this place, but you got to give up something that you really, really love. Like, if somebody said that for the gospel's sake, you have to give up something that you love. What are some things that you guys love? Like something you just like, I really love that. Okay, strudels. That's good. Like, I mean, Josh loves to hunt, man. He's an avid hunter. If right now it was like, look, to do this, to go to this place for the next 20 years, you can never go in the woods again. You just cannot. It cannot be done. To do what you're doing, like they're going to see you as an outcast if you do that, but to become a part of the people. Now, luckily, he lives in Georgia, Villa Rica, and everybody's like, yeah, man, bring me some deer meat. So that's not a problem for Josh in his context. But if that was an issue for somebody to go there, that like this on my arm or body was going to cause a stumbling block, because all of those people thought, what? This guy's into some pagan stuff. We can't trust him. Does that make sense? And so if you create that stumbling block, man, be the mature Christian in that. I mean, if you already got it, you already got it. But I'm saying just think about that as you go through your life. 1 Corinthians 8, 9 through 13. But take care that this right of yours, Christian liberty and freedom, take care that this right of yours does not somehow become a stumbling block for the weak. Who in here likes to have, don't raise your hand. Don't raise your hand. We're not going to take no thing. Who in here likes to have a drink every now and then? Or doesn't mind having something to drink? Listen to me. If you're around a guy who has been an alcoholic, I would hope if you knew that you wouldn't do that. That you wouldn't be a stumbling block for that brother or that sister. For if anyone sees you who have knowledge eating in an idol's temple, will he not be encouraged if his conscience is weak to eat food offered to idols? Paul's saying, listen, if that's an issue for him, man, don't do that. And so by your knowledge, this weak person is destroyed. Like you know that, but you do it anyways. The brother for whom Christ died. That same brother or sister, Jesus died for them, and you want to create a stumbling block because you're like, I don't have an issue with it, but they have a massive problem with it. Thus, sinning against your brothers and wounding their conscience when it is weak, you sin against Christ. Just consider that. Just consider that. Therefore, if food makes my brother stumble, I will never eat meat, lest I make my brother stumble. Now, y'all, obviously, y'all in the Corinthian church, there was a massive issue with like eating food that was like making people stumble. So sometimes this food, y'all, would be used in the temple, right? It would be used for sacrifices to pagan gods in these temples, and then it would come out and it would be sold as like meat in the market. Now, Paul, look, there's nothing inherently evil about the meat. Does that make sense? And so Paul was like, eat the meat, bruh. Like, just eat the meat. It's whatever. Just eat it. That's fine. But if you bring that meat home and you got brothers fellowship and they're going, bro, I can't eat that meat. It's my conscience. I just don't feel right about it. Then throw the meat out and go get some carrots. Like, just don't eat it. Get some soup, if that makes sense. So you have to understand that, like, if you're creating a stumbling block for another brother or sister, that's not okay. And the sin isn't just against the brother or sister. It is against Christ. So just think about that, like I said. And this may not be an issue for anybody in here, but the question was asked, so we want to kind of address it. And then I think the fourth thing is this. What are you getting, man? Consider that. Consider what you're getting. It's a permanent thing. Like, really consider what you're getting. Is it Scripture? Is it a cross? Is it something that's gospel exalting? Is it some Hebrew word on your arm where somebody's going to go, hey, what does that say? And you're like, oh, this means so-and-so, and this is what the Scriptures say. Or maybe it's a verse or whatever that may be. Like, just consider what you're getting. Is it a Pokemon? Is it something from anime? Is it a light bulb? Does it mean like, oh, no lie, I met a guy, had a light bulb on his arm, had a little, like a little, yeah, and the little shiny things that come off of lights, I guess, light rays. Yeah, light rays. And so I asked him, he was at the gym, I said, man, what does that mean? He's like, I don't know, man. He's like, I just have a lot of good ideas, and I just kind of got it, like, to remind me to, like, have good ideas. And I was like, man, I think that was a great idea to get that. That was awesome. He's like, oh, thanks, man. I was like, God, that was a terrible idea. Like, that light is not on full blast. It is about 20 lumens. And so in my mind, I'm just sitting like it was just, what are you getting, right? And also, too, man, like if you get something, your kids see those things. Your family sees those things. What is that representing? What is that kind of putting off? So flowers, I've seen people get their kids, like their footprints of their kids, like on their arm or whatever, like whatever the case may be. Like, just know that what you do, like, it's not going to be in secret. If it's anywhere visible, it's going to be exposed. And so, and I will say this too. Let me just say this to kind of the fourth thing to think about. Y'all, in our world, in our culture, especially the West, and you guys, unless you've been living under a rock, you have to agree with this. Individualism far out trumps community. Would you agree with that? Individual expression far out trumps what would be better for the whole? Like, which is why our nation is in the place that it's at, because everybody wants to do what's best for the individual, rather than go, is this best for my family? Is this best for my community? Is this best for the gospel? Is this best for God's glory? Is this best for what's going on right here and now? And so much of the tattoo scene is what? It's body art, but what is it? It is an expression of who I am. It just is. You want something that says, this is me, here's what I'm doing. Now, there are a lot of people, man, that just kind of go, and I know folks in the older generation go, why you want to draw any attention to yourself? Why you want to have anything that goes, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me? And there's going to be people all along the modesty and humility scale that go, I don't want anybody to be like, what's on your arm? Or what's that? Now, if you guys have ever seen people that are 20 with tattoos with firm, tight skin, and it looks perfect, I have seen some guys with some tattoos, and I guess what was on his arm used to be like a barbed wire fence, and it looks like a mangled string now, because you will get wrinkly, and the tattoo will lose its poppiness, and it will get saggy. And so what may once was something, oh, that's really cool, like that light bulb's going to look like an old rug rolled up on the carpet. And so I just think that it's important to consider those things of what you're going to get, and more importantly, why are we getting what we're getting? What is the purpose of that? Which kind of brings us to number 5, which is, what is the ultimate goal of the believer? To bring glory to the Father. That is the ultimate goal of the believer. And so therefore, what we eat and what we drink and what we do will reflect our devotion to the gospel. Now, if you have a tattoo, whatever. Like, maybe you have a tattoo that you go, I kind of regret getting that. I wish I didn't have that. Whatever the case may be. That's okay. I mean, look, there's 100 other tattooed, there's 100 other spiritual tattoos that people have gotten, not physical tattoos, that they are broken about and they wish they didn't get. So there is grace upon grace upon grace if you got something that was like, I shouldn't have got that. But our ultimate goal is to bring glory to God. And so let me just read 1 Corinthians 10:23 and following says this. And Paul makes this point so clear. He says this, all things are lawful, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful, but not all things build up. Basically, all things, yeah, it's permissible. You can do that, but is it going to be beneficial? Let no one seek his own good, but the good of his neighbor. Eat whatever is sold in the meat market. This goes back to the last text. Eat whatever is sold in the meat market without raising any question on the ground of conscience. If it's meat for sale, get it. Feed your family. Don't worry about where it came from. The Lord made all of it. For the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. If one of the unbelievers invites you to dinner and you're disposed to go, eat whatever's set before you without raising any question on the ground of conscience. Eat it, man. Eat it. Fellowship. Be the gospel. Be light to that person. But if someone says to you, this has been offered in sacrifice, then don't eat it for the sake of the one who has informed you, for the sake of conscience. I do not mean your conscience, but his. For why should my liberty be determined by someone else's conscience? If I partake with thankfulness, why am I denounced because of that for which I give thanks? So just consider those things. And then he says this, verse 31, which is the verse most people know. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God. Give no offense to Jews or to Greeks or to the church of God, just as I try to please everyone in everything I do, not seeking my own advantage, but that of many, that they may be saved. What is Paul's goal? Gospel transformation, people to know Jesus and come to Christ. And he's not letting some meat or some little thing become a stumbling block. Hey man, you want to come eat meat at my house? I will not go eat meat at your house. It is offered to idols. I will not do that. I will not share the gospel with you, you filthy whatever. That's not what he's doing. Oh, you have tattoos? I'm not going in there. Oh, I have a tattoo? You won't let me in there. All of those things need to kind of just be put to death, if that makes sense. So Paul is saying that the ultimate goal was for him to see people who did not know Jesus come to know Jesus, and he was not going to allow something petty to become a stumbling block. So no, getting a tattoo is not a sin, but it could be sinful based on what you get and the motives behind it. So, our purpose and aim should be the glory of God in all that we do, in anything that we do. Now, obviously, everybody has a past and things they did they wish they hadn't done. Obviously, many things that didn't bring glory to God. If that's the case, repent, leave it, and go the other way. Pretty simple as that. So, like I said, great question tonight. Like I said, I think these things are just so helpful for us to walk through as Christians, just to kind of get a bigger understanding of it. Also, too, maybe you kind of had a thought about tattoos, and you came in here and like, okay, well, the Bible just doesn't speak of it, but we need to be really, really careful. And I would say this about things that you're eating or places that you're going. Just be careful and go, all right, Lord, is this going to be glorifying and pleasing? Is it coming from a place of faith, or is it just coming from a place of, you know what, I just want to get it because I just want to do it? That's generally not a great place to be if you're just like, I'm going to do what I want to do. So I think that we need to be thinking more of our brothers and sisters in Christ, how that reflects on us. And I understand too, y'all, this thing has been very, like I was telling some folks earlier, we were talking, the Christian tattoo scene has become very trendy. Josh, how many folks at ACC had tattoos and in school? Everybody's like, yeah, look at this Greek, Hebrew, I love this, got a cross on my back. Do you know what this means? A wrist tattoo, oh, the wrist was like all day, baby. Look at these words, because they were in Hebrew or Greek class, which is fine, but the problem is this, y'all, tattoos culturally swing. Pendulum swings, everybody gets them, and then all of a sudden it kind of goes away. You guys seen some of the dress, all the 70s and 80s and stuff's coming back. All the new stuff's out the door. It's like, ugh, why don't you just get up with the times? Listen, tattoos will come, tattoos will go, trends will come, trends will go, but the word of the Lord will last forever. So look to Christ, not to the local ink guy. But if you choose to get one, think about it, have a clear conscience, and get something, I would say this, that would glorify God and point people to Jesus.